What do you consider to be a guiding principle for firms that do well and firms that don't do well? What are the firms that seem to have more success than firms of a similar size? What are some of the traits that you look for or you recommend for these companies?
I'd say it's a due diligence in knowing your numbers, first off, and second off, having a fearlessness to market because you know your numbers. So if you know your cost per lead, you know your average case value, you know your cost per wanted lead and your cost per sign up, you're comfortable making a marketing investment because you know your average case value, right? So if you spend $10,000 and your average case values exceed that with a number of cases and you can hit that, then you can make an informed marketing decision. But it does come down to fearlessness because everything doesn't have direct attribution source tracking, right? So you don't always know that your new client came from a particular marketing source. So you got to be willing to try things and you have to be aggressive so that the days of generating all your business through former client referrals and local business referrals and attorney referrals, it's a hard road to just stay on that path now because people have so many ways to find out about your business.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time this podcast or recording or video, YouTube, wherever you're watching, whatever time this finds you, welcome to the 10 Golden Rules of Internet Marketing for Law Firms podcast. I'm Jay Berkowitz. We've got a great guest today, Carl Downey. Quick commercial, as we always do at the start. If you like this content today, please go back and visit our archives. We've got, I think, 180, 190 podcast episodes. They're on YouTube, they're on iTunes, and we do a monthly webinar. We've got some great content. We just completed the ABCs of SEO, the basics of search engine optimization. We've covered a lot of AI. We've had some great content interviews, EOS, masterminds, all kinds of stuff. So if you like this content, please drop back in our YouTube channel or iTunes and review some of the past stuff. And do us one small favor, subscribe, like, comment, 5-star reviews. We'd love that. It helps people find the show and it helps us get great guests for future episodes. So without further ado, Carl Downey, welcome to the 10 Golden Rules podcast.
Thank you, Jay. Happy to be here.
Carl and I met, I guess, at a couple legal conferences, and he's at all the right places. We seem to hang out, and the company's called Complete Law Marketing, and he is a fractional law firm CMO. And so this will hopefully be a great perspective where we look in from the outside in as the marketing agency for a lot of law firms, and Carl's in there helping them in a fractional role as a CMO. But Carl, why don't you tell us first a little bit about your journey and how you ended up here?
I've been working in marketing and advertising for over 25 years. I started my career in the financial industry, working in direct mail marketing, and then transitioned into digital marketing and real estate and law firm marketing. I came to work for a company called LexisNexis Martindale Hubble and worked in the Martindale Hubble arm for about 8 years doing digital marketing with firms across the country. It was a great experience for me. Eventually, that portfolio got sold, and the field reps from Martindale Hubble were all given severance packages and moved on. So all of us kind of transitioned into different agencies, roles, responsibilities. A lot of spin-offs happened. And as I found my way through that transition, I realized that I had a lot of great relationships with my law firm clients, which drove my success. And I didn't always have agencies or companies that provided the best products or services that I was trying to position as a sales responsibility, but I could always manage that with just having good relationships. So I came to the conclusion that I didn't need a product offering to help my clients. What I really just needed to do was to get into their business and work closely with them as a a chief marketing officer to help them find the value in what they get. So I started Complete Law Marketing in 2017, and I haven't looked back ever since. It's just been a great run of helping clients and finding new clients to help and let them get to their goals and successes and wins.
That's great. Congratulations. And I think one of the things that's evolved in the business world is the fractional roles, because we all used to be stuck in a box, in a paradigm that was, hey, if you hired someone, they worked in your office and they had a salary and that was it. And if you could afford a chief marketing officer, you could afford a chief marketing officer. We just didn't even conceive of the fractional. And so over the years, maybe one of the first fractionals was we needed a COO, a chief operating officer. And it just popped in my head like, oh, maybe I could get someone part-time. And I posted a fractional role on LinkedIn, got a ton of great resumes, hired someone amazing. She tackled some huge problems for our company and just getting us on a new operating system, a new software, our project management software, writing a bunch of our standard operating procedures and systematizing things, which we'd done years before, but they all needed to be updated. So the fractional role is something I would highly recommend for firms to consider. And now we have several people fractional, like our fractional marketing person just moved full time. And a lot of times, if you get the right fit, you move that to full time. We just hired a fractional integrator in the EOS operating system. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah. I guess realistically, the CMO, a lot of firms that I work with, is the managing partner, right? They have a lot of hats they're wearing, and they're not necessarily the best at all of them. I mean, some that I meet, they should be spending all their time on marketing, and that's the right place for them. They should get somebody to do fractional for the other stuff. But a lot of times they need somebody like me. And a big benefit of having a fractional responsibility is that they work with other firms and they see a lot of other products, services, solutions that could be deployed and implemented across that firm's operation to make them more successful, right? So that is a big benefit. And then also, you don't need a full-time employee to do chief marketing officer responsibilities in a lot of firms either. So I think that it's a sweet spot that a lot of firms can take advantage of and have a lot of success with.
You made a great point about sitting in too many seats. And there's a great book called E-Myth. And E-Myth is not the electronic myth. It's an old 35-year-old book about the entrepreneur's myth. And it's one of the first books I read when I started my business. We often talk about it here on this podcast. And one of the first chapters, it recommends that you make an organizational chart. And even if you're the sole employee at the company, you put yourself in all the boxes. And I think for many of us, we're still in too many boxes. And we've recently started doing the EOS operating system. And one of the EOS has, you create an accountability chart and you figure out, you take all the people out. So nobody has a job anymore in the accountability chart. And you define the roles. What roles does the company need? And then you start fitting people in. I'm the visionary for our company. And the visionary in EOS partners with the integrator. And it's like the classic CEO who's not involved directly in the day-to-day operations. And the integrator works with all the department heads to run the day-to-day operations. Like you said, some partners in law firms should be in the marketing seat. Many shouldn't be. Some should be in the marketing seat, and then they should make sure that they get out of those seats. So like I've gotten out of finance recently. I mentioned we just hired a full-time marketing person. The problem is you do a disservice to those seats. Like if you're in 5 or 6 seats, there's no way you can do all of that, do the work and supervise the product as well. So amen.
I agree. Those are good books. I have a lot of clients on the EOS platform. So I read Traction and Fireproof, and certainly good operating systems for law firms to work with.
Yeah, we're loving it. And by the way, if you haven't looked into EOS, that we've done a couple great webinars on EOS, and we interviewed Mike Morris, who wrote the book Fireproof. So you can find great content on EOS. I'd highly recommend it. And by the way, for those founders of businesses I always say, don't read traction first. It's a mistake everybody makes. There's a better book for the visionary, for the founder of the firm. It's called Get a Grip. I keep it right here beside my trusty podcast mic. And Get a Grip is told in a story format, and it's easier for the visionary to digest. So if,
Great. That'll be my next purchase.
yeah, and especially if you have one of those law firm CEOs, and these guys need a system, and he's tried to read traction. Most of the visionaries, most of us read traction a couple times, a couple chapters, and we just couldn't get through it because it's really the operating system. It's the details for the integrator. It's got to be simplified for those of us who are the visionaries. It's got to be told in a parable story format that's very easy to digest. Then the
Yeah,
light bulb goes on.
I read that book on a flight from Baltimore to Utah,
Yeah,
and I love the book. And I
about
was going to
traction.
meet with the first firm
Yeah,
that hired me that uses the EOS system.
yeah,
So, but from my position, I could see it
yeah.
the way that I guess I could have excitement around the way that it built everything out, and then reading Fireproof set it up for law firms.
Yeah, if you can read traction cover to cover, you could potentially be an integrator. Look, a lot of us could be visionaries and integrators. And then there's a separate role called implementer, who's a third party that comes in for your quarterly meetings and helps you run EOS. And a lot of successful executives could do all three jobs, but in your company, in your day to day, you've got to pick one of the three.
Yeah, I get it.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about marketing. What are the issues the law firms are dealing with, and what are some of the solutions y'all are recommending?
Well, I mean, the biggest trend right now in digital is all centered around AI, right? So
Yeah.
Google's changing the way it's presenting its results. People are talking about how much longer are we going to use Google, which is a crazy thought. And how can you get yourself found more in AI results? And the use of video as a tool to get found more consistently. YouTube, I feel like, has almost moved up higher in interest for visibility than Google. I know they're the same company, but YouTube has evolved, at least on the conference circuit, as a main topic, right?
Yeah.
Of how to get results. So that in the digital space, that's the most influential element that I'm seeing and we're working towards driving performance with. Billboards are still out there, radio, TV, connected advertising, social media are all just as potent and powerful as they ever were. So depends on what your appetite is for a marketing budget for how you're going to attack market penetration now.
Yeah, the big guys can do it all. I'll say amen to everything you said. And the one piece that I would add, I don't feel like Google is being replaced. I feel like Google has taken a very significant defensive stance. And in my opinion, what they're doing is they're showing those AI search results. They call them AI overviews, like a chat GPT response. They're showing them right at the top of the page, particularly in the early searches when someone's just like, do I need a lawyer for a car accident? Why do I have this red rash on my skin or whatever? My thought is that they're aggressively positioning those AI answers at the very top of Google so that people retrain and they don't go to chat GPT. And so people realize, oh, I can get a really good AI answer from Google. I don't need to go to chat GPT or Perplexity or one of the other LLMs. So my personal theory is that relatively soon, within 6 months, Google's going to start showing pay-per-click ads aligned with those AI answers. So right now you're typically seeing the AI, Google's AI overviews. They're giving you a chat GPT style answer at the top of the page. And then they show links to 3 other websites where the websites they use to compile that answer. And they're showing their homework, and chat GPT is now too. So you can get links to your site from those LLM responses, large language model AI responses. But my personal theory is, Google's, once they feel like everybody's retrained, they feel like they can use Google, they can get AI answers from Google, then they're going to start showing paid ads in those on the right hand side there. And they have to, because there's $250 billion a year of revenue at stake. But
Yeah.
the second thing you said, I totally agree with, and that is YouTube seems to be coming to some very significant prominence. And if you look at the top traffic websites, of course, Google's still number one by far, but YouTube's number two by far. Google owns both products. And so you combine the two, and Google's like way, way, way ahead of the market still. ChatGPT is like in position 21 or something, way behind. I see YouTube like in my personal use. I feel like they've done a great job in making the YouTube experience kind of like TikTok or Instagram, where you start seeing the content you want to see. And so it's very, very fluid and very pleasurable to spend some time on YouTube. And it's my go-to. If I have 5 minutes because my wife takes a phone call or something, we're watching TV, I go to YouTube. Now, if you're younger, I'm sure you go to Snapchat or TikTok or something. But I think that's part of why we're seeing a lot of trend towards YouTube and video.
Yeah. And I just say, like with Google, that what's happening is right in line with what they've always done. They built something that was designed to have a great user experience, and that's how they captured market share. So they delivered the most relevant results. That was always the goal. And organic with ads with the map. So now what's more important for user experience and more relevant is an AI answer. So you make a choice to go there instead of going to ChatGPT, which is the evolution of zero click marketing, right? So now I do a search and I don't need to go to any website off of Google. I can get my answer right there. It's just a matter of does that have the depth of information that I really need, or am I going to click through one of the links? And I think in the legal space, it's going to hit the surface, but there's going to be a lot of opportunity to press through a link and go to a website to get the right answers and the details that you want. So Google will find a way to monetize it.
Yeah, you get the answer, but you don't get a lawyer. Eventually, you have to go to a lawyer site to hire a lawyer, but definitely that first search is being answered by Google. I agree.
If I'm looking for something involved, I do like the Chat GPT experience of starting my research there, giving it a little more detail. It's great if I can just talk to my phone and tell it what I want, and it spits out whatever plan of action I want from it that's within reason. I love it. And
Yeah.
that is a threat to Google.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a changing world. And our challenge, your challenge as the marketing expert, our challenge as the marketing or digital partner is guiding our clients through. And we believe that the cases are still out there, but the Google traffic's down a little bit. And I feel like those AI answers, or you use the term zero click. And what Google means by that is if you go ask a question like, do I need a lawyer if I have a car accident? And then Google gives you like 7 things to do after a car accident, explains when you do need a lawyer, when you don't need a lawyer. And so if you're just doing your initial research, Google answered that question. Previously, Google would have shown you 4 different websites that have blogs called Do I Need a Lawyer After a Car Accident? And we would
Right.
have had a chance to get those people on a free consult. But I still feel like the cases are out there. And so you, I think, correctly said, we have a requirement on us now to do more in YouTube, more in social media, be very effective and consistent with the firm's branding, community activities, because people are still going to find lawyers, but there's going to be fewer opportunities on that first initial search.
Yeah, and there's a new thing you look at more closely now, impressions and queries, right? You want to see that trending up. Before you could look at trends on just general, how much traffic am I getting to my website, but now you got to pay attention to the other ones and try to grow those too, because you might not get the click.
Hey, the good news for you and I is someone's got to dig deep on this stuff and figure it out. And we can really be an asset to the firms when we do that. I always like to ask a business question for folks like yourself and myself, because we get to look into these firms from 30,000 feet and we get to see across many firms, as you mentioned. What do you consider to be a guiding principle for firms that do well and firms that don't do well? What are the firms that seem to have more success than firms of a similar size? What are some of the traits that you look for or you recommend for these companies?
I'd say It's a due diligence in knowing your numbers, first off, and second off, having a fearlessness to market because you know your numbers. So if you know your cost per lead, you know your average case value, you know your cost per wanted lead and your cost per sign up, you're comfortable making a marketing investment because you know your average case value, right? So if you spend $10,000 and your average case values exceed that with a number of cases and you can hit that, then you can make an informed marketing decision. But it does come down to fearlessness because everything doesn't have direct attribution source tracking, right? So you don't always know that your new client came from a particular marketing source. So you got to be willing to try things and you have to be aggressive so that the days of generating all your business through former client referrals and local business referrals and attorney referrals, it's a hard road to just stay on that path now because people have so many ways to find out about your business. So my favorite clients are the ones that are fearless. I just launched a new practice in Maryland here with a estate planning firm and two female attorneys that spun off from another firm that is established and substantial. We launched a website and a SEO campaign that is a significant investment for an estate planning firm to get started with, but they jumped on it and they really worked in the details of how that content was going to be driven and how their business plan was executed within that. And it's a great website and it's exciting to see. And they opened their doors a month earlier than we thought they were gonna. We had to pick the right office location to get them started in to build their base. And that was a research project that was very fulfilling and they got that rolling. And then finally, now we want cases now. What can we do now? We need them now. So we started the networking and the local campaign building, but we also initiated a pay-per-click campaign just to get it off and running. So for an estate planning firm, in my experience, they're not going to be, a lot of times those attorneys aren't going to be as aggressive as you'd think they would. And the fearlessness with these two attorneys and their willingness to jump out there and get after the marketing piece of it, like on day one, I love that. And of course I would as a marketing person, but I know it's going to pay off for them.
I really like that line of thinking, fearlessness with respect to marketing, with the numbers in mind. And I
Yeah.
think if we call it testing, but clearly you got to be fearless about jumping into some things. And you said, if you know your numbers, if you know, okay, if we get a phone call and it costs $200, we're going to convert 1 in 10. Our cost per case is $2,000 and our revenue per case is $10,000. And we can cash flow that case acquisition cost of $2,000, then you should be fearless. And if the agency recommends, hey, we just uncovered a new lead gen strategy, or when the Google local service ads came along and we recommended to folks to jump in, the people who jumped in day one, they took advantage of 200-300 leads the first month or two. The people who jumped in 6 or 8 months later found that there was already 50 or 100 people certified, verified, or what Google calls screened for lawyers, and the market was tougher. So that fearlessness is definitely an asset, and fearlessness combined with an understanding of whether it's working or not. I love
Yeah, that's a common denominator across my most successful firms. 100%.
that's great. You do the whole marketing consulting. We've had some great conversations. We did a Rainmaker webinar. Charlie Mann shared his $500,000 referral playbook. What do you recommend for building those relationships, the referral relationships with professionals, with other attorneys? Do you do work with your attorneys on the ground, what I call the ground game or the grassroots marketing?
Yeah, I mean, for the established firm, they should be getting referrals from the local businesses. If we're looking at the personal injury front, the doctors in the area, orthopedics, physical therapy, chiropractor, collision centers, tow trucks, any business that you can align with dealing with an injury or an auto accident. The firms I've seen have great success, have had a local marketing person, a local marketing coordinator. And part of their responsibility was to go out and develop those relationships, inform those businesses on what the firm offers, and they're held accountable to being in front of a number of businesses a week, and we track referrals from them. With that effort, you can drive a volume of cases that easily pay for that staff member. And you can have that staff member working in other responsibilities besides that networking. They can be handling social media, they can be helping different departments with creating ads. There's lots of functionality for them, and you can hire a relatively young person in that role, and they're going to thrive and move on it. I equate it a little bit to like the pharmaceutical model where they go around and they make office visits, but that's not their only responsibility. But I love that. And when it's deployed effectively, it's a home run.
Yeah, we love it too. Nothing like a referral. I mean, referrals generally convert for, I'm sure for you, for me, for the attorneys at a much higher rate than even website inquiries or anything we can do on the internet. What's one simple step you recommend every law firm take for marketing in 2025?
The main focus right now is on in-house content creation. So nobody can tell it or say it or write it like the attorneys at the office, right? So a lot of agencies try to take that, they take that off their plate so that they can deliver a volume of content in the internet content game that has been in place. Content is king. But now it's kind of like relationship building. So I look at the attorney, I look at the office, I look at the client, and I say, what are you passionate about? What's most interesting to you? What do you want to talk about in your field? And I try to get them rolling with that. Just write a blog for me. With the estate planning firm, I said, look, you got some downtime. We're trying to get some clients. There's so much to inform people about. Can you start writing blogs for me? Yes. These girls wrote 20 blogs in 3 weeks. And then we
Awesome.
took those blogs and we created scripts to start creating videos. But if you can get started talking about what you're passionate about in your practice, or having people in your practice talk about what they're passionate about, it's a huge opportunity for you to build useful content, stuff people want to read.
Yeah, I love that next level of going to video. We've
Mhm.
used a similar thing, and we basically asked the attorneys to answer questions on video.
Mhm.
Back to the car accident. What do I do if I get hit by an Uber? Who's going to pay for my medical repairs if I get hit by an uninsured motorist? And answering those questions on video works on a number of ways. It's great content, like you said. The search engines love it. We talked earlier about the AI question and answer SEO. So you can be positioned to come up with those AI answers or the Chat GPT answers if you help Google or Chat GPT answer a question. And then the best result is people actually go to your website, go to your YouTube channel, watch your videos, and say, oh, this guy gets it, or these women from this estate planning firm, I jive with them. And it's almost like your interview, and they come in ready to go. I love getting them to do blogs, but the guidance we give is answer questions. What questions do your prospects ask all the time? What questions do you
Mhm.
get at the switchboard? What questions do you get in your intake department? Answer those questions. So I love that one.
Yeah.
We're at the time famous for the regular listeners of the podcast. These are our quick one-liners at the end, and we've had great marketers and great business professionals answer these questions through the years. So, Carl, you get to join that famous list and tell us, what apps or techniques do you use for personal productivity?
I go through a process every morning called the Miracle Morning. You might have heard of the book by Hal Elrod, but I start all my days that way and it gets me focused and ready to perform. The Miracle Morning is a process of meditation, affirmations. Well, he calls it savers. Silence is meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading and writing or journaling, right? At first, it was hard, the meditation piece. I don't do it for extended periods of time, but I do take 5 minutes every day and breathe and meditate and focus, right? And then I have some affirmations that are just things you say about what you're going to get out of your day and your life. And it's the same thing every day.
I love it.
And then I visualize. I play a lot of golf, so I'll spend some time listening to classical music and visualizing what I'm going to get accomplished in my business, where I want that to take me in my life, like what vacation it is, whatever, what my family's going to experience, and then how straight am I going to hit that golf ball and chip it onto the green and put it in the hole. I'll even go through, if I'm playing that day, I'll go through 18 holes on the course in my mind. So I love that part. The reading part of it, and I've been up and down with this over the years. I think I started doing it in 2020 during COVID, but I got away from it and then I got back to it. That reading part of it, I'll read for 20 minutes every morning and it keeps me on point to inform myself. So I'm into business books mostly right now. If that loses its interest level because maybe it gets redundant, I'll switch to fiction or I'll do something else. There's a meditations book that I'm reading by Marcus Aurelius right now that is great just to read a couple of his ideas every morning. But reading, really important part of the day. And then the journaling is I really enjoy that. Sometimes
Yeah,
I'll write about what I read.
great answer. And you skipped ahead to the next one. Best business books. What is on your reading list these days?
I just read a book called The 12-Week Year. And I think it's got a lot of EOS principles in it, how you work off of driving performance within the quarter.
Yep.
But
EOS is very quarterly. Yep.
yeah, but I like the 12-week year. It sets you up to build your whole game plan, goals, and strategies around that 12 weeks and reward yourself at the end of the 12 weeks. I think back to my sales career, how much better I always did in Q4 or in Q1 when there was a big incentive at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
But really, if you can operate like that every 3 months, you can be in a position to be a big win every time. So I like that book.
I like that. I haven't read The Morning Miracle or The 12-Week Year. So thank you for adding to my list. Normally we're in sync on these podcasts and I've read the books, but thank you for filling one in. Next question. So you're sitting there and you got a minute to spare before the next meeting, and a blog or a podcast or a webinar hits your stream. What's your go-to? Which one do you stop everything, open, read, or listen to?
So I subscribe to a daily newsletter. It's called The Hustle. It's a HubSpot media product, but it always has interesting stories and useful business information and trends. And it's very well written. And it will put me on to a podcast idea or some other thing. And it's just something I take 10 minutes to review and read the interesting components of every morning.
That's great. I love that. HubSpot. I listened to a couple of the HubSpot podcasts. Matter of fact, have for over 10 years. So they put out great content. So thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
Who's your NFL or sports team?
I'm in Baltimore. Baltimore Orioles, Baltimore Ravens. Those are my teams, season ticket holder for the Orioles, and
Great.
seeing the Ravens in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they keep building that defense and doing enough on offense. So you got a shot every year. And last couple questions. What's a great introduction for you? Who do you want to meet from a business perspective?
Fearless law firms, right? Law firms that are looking to grow and improve in what they're doing, and they recognize that they could do better with the right emphasis on their marketing. So the fractional CMO role is an investment in the business, right?
Great.
So you gotta have a confidence in hiring somebody like that to take it on, and then be fearless after that because with this is going to come recommendations to make investments in your business.
Yeah, I love that you've put a stake in the ground. And if I meet a fearless law firm who really needs that CMO role, where can I get in touch with you?
My website is completelawmarketing.com, and all the information's on there for how to reach me, but it's just Carl with a C at completelawmarketing.com. Love to hear from anybody that's interested.
Awesome, Carl. Thanks for the time today. It was lots of fun.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you for listening to the 10 Golden Rules of Internet Marketing for Law Firms podcast. Please send questions and comments to podcast@10goldenrules.com. That is podcast@TENGoldenrules.com.